January is absolutely stacked for TV fans, long anticipated new shows, big returns, some surprising, others long awaited. It honestly feels like a belated Christmas present for viewers, from psychological thrillers and spy dramas to fantasy and sci-fi epics. The first month of 2026 has something for everyone. I'm KG, this is Watch This Instead, and today we're breaking down the most anticipated series hitting streaming in January. I have 21 amazing picks for you, let's jump right in. Kicking off January is Runaway, dropping on Netflix on New Year's Day. The streamer's latest Harlan Coben thriller is a limited series built on binging and emotional stress. The premise is instantly gripping. Simon Green, played by James Nesbitt, is a father searching for his runaway teenage daughter. When he briefly finds her, she is tangled up in a world he doesn't recognize, and then she disappears again, pulling him into a dangerous mystery that keeps escalating. The cast is stacked with familiar faces. Minnie Driver plays Simon's wife Ingrid, Ruth Jones appears in a key investigative role, and Alfred Enoch is one of the law enforcement figures circling the case. Like most Coben adaptations, this is less about traditional detective work and more about how far a parent will go when the truth starts tearing their family apart. Expect a tense, twist-heavy thriller with constant momentum, secrets, sudden turns, and that signature Coben feeling that every answer is going to make things worse. If you like fast-moving mysteries, missing person stories, and emotionally charged Netflix thrillers, this one's designed to pull you in fast and not let go. One of January's biggest returns is The Pitt Season 2, landing on January 8th, and it's bringing back that signature you can't breathe intensity. The whole season plays out in real time, covering a single 15-hour ER shift, but this time we jump 10 months forward to a chaotic 4th of July weekend, aka the perfect storm of disasters, injuries, and overwhelmed staff. Noah Wiley is back as Dr. Michael Robbie Rubinovich, still carrying the psychological bruises of last season while trying to keep the department from imploding. Catherine Lanassa returns as Dana, the steady hand in the chaos, and Patrick Bowe is back as Dr. Langdon, newly returned and immediately thrown into the deep end. Season 2 also introduces Dr. Mohan, played by Supriya Ganesh, stepping in as Robbie's temporary replacement, which adds a whole new layer of tension inside the department. Expect bigger pressure, sharper interpersonal friction, and a major curveball when a system outage forces the hospital to go analog. No digital support, just raw triage, instincts, and panic. If you like high-stakes medical drama that feels alarmingly real and relentlessly bingeable, The Pitt is about to own January. Also dropping on January 8th, this time on Netflix, is His and Hers, a twisty psychological thriller built around one delicious hook. Two estranged spouses end up chasing the same murder case, and each thinks the other might be involved. Tessa Thompson stars as Anna, a former news reporter who gets pulled back into her hometown when a murder hits close to home, and she can't stop digging. On the other side is John Bernthal as Detective Jack Harper, the cop leading the investigation whose personal history with Anna turns every clue into a minefield. Pablo Schreiber rounds out the main trio as Richard, the key figure caught in the fallout as the case tightens. Expect a glossy, tense, two sides to every story kind of binge, secrets inside a marriage, small town rot, competing narratives, and the creeping feeling that truth isn't just hidden, it's being actively staged. If you like thrillers where every episode rewrites what you thought you knew, this one is aiming to be your January obsession. Returning on January 9th, Tehran is a tense espionage thriller about Tamar Rabinian, a Mossad hacker sent on a covert mission in Iran that goes wrong almost immediately, leaving her stranded, hunted, and forced to survive using intelligence, deception, and nerve in one of the world's most dangerous cities. Season 3 picks up with Tamar still trapped in Iran, but the game has changed. Neve Sultan returns in the role, now playing Tamar as more hardened arrogant, more isolated, and far less certain about who she can trust. The big new addition is Hugh Laurie joining the cast as a nuclear inspector whose presence throws fresh geopolitical fuel onto an already volatile situation. Familiar faces like Sean Taub and Sheila Omi are back, grounding the story in long-running personal and political tensions. This season leans even harder into paranoia and pressure, quiet conversations that feel like traps, shifting alliances, and a sense that every decision carries real consequences. It's still grounded, still realistic, and still allergic to flashy spy nonsense. If you're into espionage thrillers that feel plausible, nerve-wracking, and morally messy, where survival is never guaranteed, Tehran Return is a serious January highlight. Also returning on January 9th, 1000 Blows is a hard-hitting Victorian crime drama set in London's East End following Jamaican friends Hezekiah Moscow and Alec Monroe as they fight to survive in a world where bare-knuckle boxing, crime, and class warfare collide. Malachi Kirby is back as Hezekiah, now more hardened and aware of how quickly ambition can turn lethal. Stephen Graham returns as Sugar Goodson, the terrifying king of the boxing underworld whose grip on power is starting to face real pressure. And Erin Doherty continues to be a standout as Mary Carr, the razor-sharp leader of the 40 Elephants, expanding her influence with intelligence and ruthless precision. This season isn't just about fighting in the ring, it's about shifting control, broken alliances, and what survival actually costs when the city is designed to crush people like you. Creator Stephen Knight leans harder into the social tension and moral fallout, making every victory feel temporary and every choice dangerous. The tone stays raw and unsparing. Blood, mud, crowded streets, and people forced to act because there's no safer option. If you're into period dramas that feel tense, physical, and genuinely unforgiving, 1000 Blows coming back is one to have firmly on your radar. Returning on January 11th, Industry is a sharp, unfiltered drama about young bankers and traders trying to survive inside the brutal world of high finance where money is power, loyalty is temporary, and ambition usually comes at the cost of your personal life or your soul. Season 4 finds the characters operating in a post-Pierpoint world where the rules have shifted and the stakes feel colder. Harper is still the show's most dangerous wildcard, brilliant, reckless, and determined to stay ahead no matter the collateral damage. Yasmin continues her evolution, now navigating power from a position that's more calculated than chaotic. And Eric remains the show's ticking time bomb, unpredictable, strategic, and always one bad day away from blowing everything up. This season pushes the story beyond graduate desperation into something more adult and unsettling. Private equity, ESG politics, tech money, and the realization that making it inside the system doesn't bring freedom. It just raises the cost of failure. New arrivals like Kiernan Shipka and Max Minghella single fresh power struggles and new pressure points. The energy is still intense but sharper and more controlled. Fewer blow-ups, more psychological warfare. Conversations feel like negotiations, friendships feel conditional, and every decision has a long tail. If you're into prestige drama that dissects ambition, ego, and the quiet violence of capitalism, Industry's Return is one of January's most compelling watches. Also returning on January 11th, The Night Manager is a slick, high-stakes espionage thriller about Jonathan Pine, a former soldier turned luxury hotel night manager who gets pulled into the world of undercover intelligence, infiltrating arms dealers, navigating corrupt power structures, and constantly walking the line between survival and exposure. Season 2 brings Tom Hiddleston back as Pine, now older, more guarded, and dragged once again again into a mission he can't fully control. Olivia Colman also returns as the formidable intelligence officer Angela Burr, still sharp, still relentless, and still willing to bend the rules if it gets results. This time around, the threat comes from a new, modern arms network with global reach, pulling Pine into a web that feels even more politically volatile and morally murky. Unlike the first season's cat and mouse dynamic, season 2 is shaping up to be broader and more international, shifting locations, new players, and a Pine who's no longer naive about the cost of this kind of work. The glamour is still there, sun-soaked locations, expensive suits, whispered deals, but it's paired with a heavier sense of consequence and fatigue. The tone remains cool, tense, and deliberately paced, letting suspicion and power plays do the heavy lifting instead of non-stop action. If you're into prestige spy dramas where the real danger lives in conversations, not shootouts, The Night Manager's long-awaited return is a major January event. Returning January 13th, Tell Me Lies is back with another chapter of one of TV's most addictive toxic relationships. If you haven't jumped in yet, the series follows Lucy Albright and Stephen DeMarco, two college students whose intense, manipulative relationship quietly wrecks not just each other but everyone around them, across dual timelines stretching years into the future. Grace Van Patten returns as Lucy, still trying to convince herself she's in control, while Jackson White is back as Steven, charming, emotionally vacant, and dangerously self-aware. Their dynamic remains the core of the show, obsession disguised as love, power disguised as intimacy. The supporting cast continues to orbit their chaos, with Tom Ellis returning as Oliver and new faces entering the mix to stir up fresh tension. Season 3's big hook is simple and alarming. Lucy and Steven are back together. The creators have teased the season that's darker, more emotionally volatile, and far more focused on consequences, especially as the future timeline starts catching up to them. Old secrets resurface, lines blur again, and the question isn't if the relationship explodes, it's who else gets caught in it this time. Expect messy emotions, sharp confrontations, and that uniquely uncomfortable feeling where you know something is bad, but you still can't look away. If you're into relationship dramas that feel painfully real and deeply unhealthy, Tell Me Lies Season 3 is one of January's most bingeable returns. Landing on January 14th, Hijack returns with a new real-time crisis, and this time it's leaving the skies behind. The series takes its high-concept hook and drops it into a new pressure cooker, a Berlin underground train packed with civilians and suddenly taken hostage while the city races to stop a catastrophe. Idris Elba is back as Sam Nelson, the corporate negotiator who somehow keeps ending up at the center of impossible situations. After surviving the events of Season 1, Sam is pulled into another nightmare where talking is still the only weapon, but the margin for error is even smaller. Confined spaces, escalating panic, and split-second decisions turn every conversation into a gamble. Season 2 expands the cast and scope. Familiar faces like Archie Punjabi and Max Beasley return, while new additions including Toby Jones signal that this story isn't just about a single incident, but something wider and far more coordinated. The series leans harder into global stakes, threading together what's happening underground with the power struggles unfolding above it. Instead of repeating the exact formula, the new season reshapes the tension, tighter environments, faster escalation, and a sense that Sam is no longer reacting, he's being tested. The real question isn't whether he can talk his way out again, but whether the tactics that worked before will still hold when the rules keep changing. This is for viewers who enjoy thrillers that move in real time, thrive on claustrophobia, and turn dialogue into a life or death sport. The kind of show that gives you shoulder stands for an entire episode. January 15th brings Agatha Christie's Seven Dials to Netflix, a brand new three-part period murder mystery that kicks off with a lavish 1920s country house party and a prank that goes horribly, murderously wrong. What starts as champagne and jokes spirals into a full-blown whodunit with secrets slithering out from behind polite smiles and aristocratic manners. Our unlikely sleuth is Lady Aileen Bundle Brent, played by Mia McKenna-Bruce. Curious, sharp, and absolutely not the type people expect to be the smartest person in the room. She's put into an investigation that quickly grows bigger than one death, with the kind of tangled clues Christie fans live for. The grown-up star power around her is excellent. Helena Bonham Carter as Lady Caterham and Martin Freeman as Superintendent Battle, the steady professional trying to keep order while Bundle pokes at everything people want left alone. And yes, there's plenty of suspicious upper-class behavior to go around. Behind it all is Chris Chibnall, the creator of Broadchurch, which is basically a green flag for a tightly paced mystery with real momentum and character tension baked into every scene. The vibe looks like classic Christie comfort with a sharper edge, glamorous settings, quick-witted dialogue, and a mystery that moves fast rather than lounging around between reveals. If you want something cozy but tense to binge in a single night, elegant murders, clever suspects, and that wait, hang on feeling every time a new detail drops, Seven Dials should be a perfect January treat. Arriving on January 15th, Star Trek Starfleet Academy shifts the franchise into a new gear, focusing on the first class of Starfleet cadets in over a century, training in a future where Starfleet is still trying to rebuild its identity. Set in the 32nd century, the series follows a group of young recruits learning what it actually means to wear the uniform when the galaxy isn't stable and the rules are still being rewritten. The ensemble cast includes Sandro Rosta, Caris Brooks, Kareem Diane, George Hawkins, and Bella Shepherd, with Holly Hunter anchoring the show as the Academy's formidable chancellor, part mentor, part gatekeeper. There's plenty for longtime fans too. Paul Giamatti shows up as a major antagonist, and familiar faces like Tig Notaro and Robert Picardo return to connect the show to the wider Trek universe. Importantly, this isn't just a classroom drama. The Academy has access to a working starship, meaning real missions, real danger, and real consequences. The tone looks more youthful, but the stakes stay very Trek. Teamwork, moral choices, and figuring out who you are when the future needs you to step up fast. For anyone looking for a fresh entry point into the franchise or a character-driven sci-fi series with room to grow, this is one of January's most intriguing new launches. Landing on Peacock on January 15th, Ponies is a Cold War spy thriller with a killer hook. In Moscow in 1977, two women working as invisible embassy secretaries, the kind intelligence people call ponies, persons of no interest, are suddenly thrown into espionage when their CIA agent husbands die under suspicious circumstances. Instead of going home and grieving quietly, they're pulled into the job and into conspiracy that's way bigger than they're ready for. The show is led by Emilia Clarke as Bay, overeducated, fluent in Russian, and quietly lethal when she needs to be, and Haley Lou Richardson as Twila, her chaotic, fearless counterpart. Their dynamic is the engine, two very different women learning how to operate in a world where everyone is lying, everyone is watching, and one mistake can get you disappeared. Adrian Lester plays Dane, a seasoned CIA figure who becomes their guide, or at least tries to. Instead of playing this as dry spy homework, the early tease is stylish, darkly funny, and tense. Embassy politics, surveillance paranoia, and sudden bursts of violence, with the fun twist that these women are underestimated by everyone, which makes them dangerous. Created by Susanna Fogel and David Iserson, it looks like the kind of show that mixes slick espionage energy with character-driven momentum. The perfect January binge if you want spies, secrets, and a duo you can't stop watching. On January 16th, Starz drops The Nowhere Man, a 6-episode action thriller that starts small and immediately turns dangerous. The premise centers on Lucas, a former Special Forces mercenary living off the grid in Johannesburg, trying to outrun his past while battling PTSD. He keeps his head down, scavenges for scraps, survives in the margins, until he witnesses a home invasion and steps in. And that one decision drags him straight back back into a world he thought he'd escaped. Bonko Koza leads as Lucas, with Naturi Norton Lewis starring alongside him and Adrian Lester adding heavyweight presence as the kind of figure who feels like he knows more than he's saying. The show's built around Lucas being underestimated, not just by criminals but by the system, which makes him quietly lethal once the switch flips. The show looks like it's going for ground level, gritty survival action rather than glossy spy fantasy, street level danger, and a protagonist forced to confront the dark secrets tied to his former life. It also has a weekly rollout, so it's positioned like an event thriller you can follow through the month, episode by episode. If you want something tense, physical, and character driven, an action story where the violence feels personal, The Nowhere Man could be a sneaky January standout. Landing on January 18th on HBO Max is arguably the biggest heavy hitter of the month, A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, which is the next Game of Thrones universe series, but instead of dragons and world-ending politics, this one goes smaller, warmer, and more character-driven. It's set roughly a century before the events of Game of Thrones and adapts George R.R. Martin's Dunk and Egg stories. The setup is simple and instantly bingeable. Sir Duncan the Tall, or Dunk, played by Peter Claffey, is a broke, low-born hedge knight trying to survive on the tournament circuit, when he picks up a sharp, stubborn kid as his squire, Egg, played by Dexter Saul Ansel, who is very much not just a random kid. Their road trip through Westeros dynamic is the heart of the show. Muddy travel, tense inns, jousts, bad decisions, and the constant sense that trouble finds them even when they are trying to avoid it. Season 1 is 6 episodes and supporting cast is packed with famous names from the Targaryen family tree and Westerosi history. Finn Bennett as the dangerously unhinged Aerion Brightflame Targaryen, Bertie Carvel as Baelor Breakspear, Sam Spruill as Maekar Targaryen, Daniel Ings as Lionel Baratheon the Laughing Storm, and Tanzin Crawford as Tanzel, a Dornish performer who gets tangled up in the chaos. Behind the scenes, it's run by Ira Parker with Martin directly involved, and the vibe looks intentionally different from Thrones and House of the Dragon. More adventurous, more intimate, still deadly, just filtered through two underdogs moving through a world run by people with banners, birthrights, and armies. If you want Westeros with heart, humor, and sword point tension, a season you can devour quickly without needing a family tree chart, this is the January drop to circle in red. Arriving on FX on January 21st, The Beauty is Ryan Murphy doing what he does best, taking something glossy and seductive and turning it into a nightmare. The hook is instantly bingeable. A new miracle that makes people physically perfect starts spreading like an epidemic, and behind the glow-up is a body horror catch that turns beauty into a weapon. The story follows two investigators, Evan Peters and Rebecca Hall, as they dig into a string of mysterious deaths tied to the phenomenon, pulling them into a world of high fashion, power, and a shadowy operation that's clearly profiting from the chaos. Ashton Kutcher plays the kind of slick figure you immediately don't trust, while Anthony Ramos and Jeremy Pope round out the core cast as the conspiracy deepens and the perfect surfaces start cracking. This looks like a stylish, fast-moving thriller with teeth, part conspiracy mystery, part social satire, part full-body don't look away horror. Think glamorous locations, escalating paranoia, and the creeping realization that the thing everyone wants might be the thing that destroys them. Returning on January 21st, Drops of God is Apple TV Plus's elegant, high-stakes drama where wine tasting becomes a psychological battleground, part inheritance thriller, part character study. If you haven't seen season 1 yet, the setup is simple and gripping. When legendary wine critic Alexander Leger dies, his vast and priceless wine collection doesn't go to a single heir. Instead, it becomes the prize in a series of intense sensory challenges between two strangers, Camille, his estranged daughter who has a raw emotional connection to wine, and Issei, his brilliant former protege trained to near perfection. What starts as a competition quickly becomes a personal reckoning for both of them. Season 2 builds on that foundation by widening the scope. Camille, played by Fleur Geffrier, and Issei, played by Tomohisa Yamashita, are once again pulled into Leger's orbit, this time chasing an almost mythic question, origin of what may be the greatest wine ever made. The rivalry is still there, but it's more complicated now, shaped by everything they've learned about themselves and each other. Expect more global travel, deeper history, and challenges that test not just their palates but their identities. The series continues to lean into atmosphere, quiet intensity, beautiful locations, and moments where a single taste unlocks memory, trauma, or obsession. This isn't a loud show, but it's a deeply absorbing one. If you like slow burn prestige drama, understated tension, and stories about legacy and obsession told with elegance and restraint, Drops of God remains one of the most distinctive series Apple TV Plus has to offer. Arriving on January 22nd, the Pendragon cycle Rise of the Merlin is Daily Wire Plus's big swing at an Arthurian epic, but it's set before Camelot, before the Crown, when Britain is fractured, brutal, and on the edge of collapse. This first season pulls from Stephen R. Lowhead's novels and frames the legend as a gritty origin story, politics, prophecy, war, and the slow birth of the myth. The key figure here is Merlin, a man whose missions and influence start shaping the future of the island even as rival kings and invading forces tighten the noose. Alongside him you've got major storylines driven by Charis and the bard Taliesin, characters who bring the mythic side of the story but with very human stakes, loyalty, survival, and the cost of belief. In terms of vibe, this is going for cinematic fantasy drama, sweeping landscapes, old world power struggles, and a grounded early Britain tone rather than glossy medieval fairy tale, and because it's a 7-part season, it's built to binge like a single contained event. If you want an Arthurian series that leans into origins, destiny, and the messy reality behind the legend, this is the January release that could surprise a lot of people. January 27 brings Marvel's Wonder Man to Disney+, and it's shaping up to be one of the MCU's most unusual swings, a Hollywood-set, self-aware series that treats acting like a life-or-death sport with superhero chaos creeping in at the edges. The story follows Simon Williams, played by Yahya Abdul-Mateen II, a struggling actor desperate to land the lead in a reboot of an in-universe superhero movie called Wonder Man. His unlikely scene partner in all of this is Trevor Slattery, played by Ben Kingsley, yes, that Trevor, who's now trying to claw his way back to relevance and treats the whole thing like his grand comeback. Their dynamic is the core of the show. Ambition, ego, insecurity, and a very messy friendship forming in the worst possible environment. Season 1 is billed as a binge, all 8 episodes drop at once, and it looks like Marvel leaning into satire and sincerity at the same time. Behind the scenes chaos, industry absurdity, and a lead character who's more obsessed with being taken seriously than being a hero, even as hints of real powers begin to surface. Created by Destin Daniel Cretton, with Andrew Guest steering the series, this one's aiming for something lighter on saving the world and heavier on identity, performance, and the weirdness of superhero culture in a world that's already full of superheroes. If you're in the mood for a Marvel that feels more like a sharp, character-driven comedy drama with a meta edge and a binge-friendly drop, Wonder Man is the late January wildcard to watch. Hitting January 28th, School Spirits returns with Season 3, and if you've never watched it, the setup is instantly bingeable. A high school senior, Maddie Nears, dies, or at least seems to, wakes up trapped in the afterlife at her own school and realizes the only way to move forward is to figure out what really happened to her, with the help of other teenage ghosts who've been stuck there for years. At the center is Peyton List as Maddie, juggling grief, confusion, and sheer determination as she tries to get answers. Christian Ventura plays Simon, her closest connection to the living side of the story, and Milo Manheim is part of the core crew that gives the show its mix of warmth, humor, and unease. The cast dynamic is a big part of why it works. It's a mystery, but it's also about friendship and unfinished business in a place that refuses to let anyone go. Season 3 looks like it's pushing deeper into the show's lore, widening the rules of what the afterlife at Split River High actually is, and raising the stakes around how the living and the dead can affect each other. The vibe is still that perfect blend of teen drama and supernatural thriller, emotional stakes, creepy hallway energy, and twists that keep the mystery moving without losing the characters. If you like school set mysteries, eerie between worlds stories, and shows that balance heart with genuine tension, this is a great late January return to pencil in. Back on January 28th, Shrinking returns for its third season, Apple TV Plus's therapy comedy that somehow makes you laugh, tear up, and then call your dad all in the same episode. If you haven't watched yet, the premise is simple. Jimmy, played by Jason Segel, is a grieving therapist who starts ditching the rulebook and telling his patients exactly what he thinks, and the fallout reshapes his life, his daughter's life, and basically everyone in their orbit. Season 3 brings back the full core crew: Jason Segel, Harrison Ford as Dr. Paul Rhodes, Jessica Williams, Krista Miller, Luke Tenney, Michael Urie, Lukita Maxwell, and Ted McGinley. And the guest star lineup is genuinely stacked. Michael J. Fox joins this season in a role that connects to the show's Parkinson storyline, along with Jeff Daniels, plus returning guest favorites like Kobe Smulders, Wendy Malick, Damon Wayans Jr., and co-creator Brett Goldstein popping back in. The showrunners have framed Season 3 as the moving forward chapter, less about raw grief and more about growth, change, and what happens when you try to build a life that isn't defined by what you lost. One big emotional engine this year, Alice is preparing to leave for college, forcing Jimmy to face what letting go actually looks like and whether he's ready to be happy again. Season 3 kicks off with a 1-hour premiere and runs 11 episodes, releasing weekly through early April. It's still warm, still painfully honest, still packed with those laugh first then get hit in the chest moments, just with the stakes shifted into the next stage of everyone's lives. Arriving on January 29th, Bridgerton is back, Netflix's glossy Regency romance machine where scandal spreads faster than champagne and every love story comes with social warfare attached. If you're new, the show follows the Bridgerton siblings as each season spotlights a different romance in London's high society. Desire versus duty, reputation versus happiness, all narrated by the ever-dangerous shadow of Lady Whistledown. Season 4 finally puts Benedict Bridgerton front and center with Luke Thompson stepping into leading man mode. His match is Sophie Bayek, played by Yerin Ha, a maid caught between the downstairs world and the glittering fantasy upstairs. Their story is described as Cinderella-inspired, beginning with a masked encounter at Violet Bridgerton's masquerade ball that leaves Benedict obsessed with a lady in silver, before reality brings him face to face with Sophie in a very different context. The season is 8 episodes split into 2 drops, part 1 on January 29th and part 2 on February 26th, so you get the binge hit and then the second serving. The promise this time is a slightly different flavor, more upstairs-downstairs tension, more class conflict, and a romance that's not just about chemistry, it's about whether these two people can even exist in the same world without it blowing up in their faces. And that wraps up our look at the most anticipated shows hitting streaming this January. Thanks for watching. Whether you binge this whole video in one go or paused halfway through to add half the list to your watch queue. If you enjoyed the video, hit the thumbs up, share it with a fellow TV addict, and subscribe so you don't miss the next round of recommendations. Drop a comment and let me know which of these you're most excited for, or if I missed a hidden gem you think deserves a shout out. Happy binging, see you in the next one, and remember, sleep is optional when there's one more episode.